I'm Ryan, this is my brother Daniel, and this is Rolls and the Family. And today we are talking about games we love. We really do like these games, but we find that we are hesitant to recommend them to people.
And
we'll see the different ways that we interpret that topic and what the reasons are that we might be hesitant to recommend these games that we clearly enjoy a lot. But maybe you'll, through this, decide it is the right game.
Yeah, maybe
for
we'll
you.
do a bad job of
I mean, we're going to explain why we're hesitant, which might in some ways make it really clear if you are in the demographic that would be right for it.
That's a good point.
In which case, you should check out the links in the description below. Any purchases through those links do support the channel. We appreciate that.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of the few ways to support the channel at this juncture in time. Besides, liking the video, subscribing,
telling
to the
all
channel,
your friends,
telling all your friends.
Oh my gosh!
Sending out our website of board game recommendations to people that might benefit from some guided board game purchasing. Yeah, okay, I lied. You can really support us in a lot of ways. But we also would love to hear in the comments below if there's as you listen to kind of our entries here, if there's a game that comes to mind for you that you really love, but you find that it's hard to recommend it to other people. I'm very interested to jump into this one because I didn't give Daniel a whole lot of direction, so I'm interested to see where our results land here. But let's have Daniel kick it off.
There's no greater content than Daniel with no direction on this channel, which is
there's not been too many videos that it's getting to entry number 4 or 3, and I'm going, Daniel didn't really view this the way I was.
You know what?
No, you're doing great, Daniel.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think I've got some good ones here. So, number 5, game that we both love, but I find is hard to recommend, is a game that we've had this one. I actually don't currently own it. It's in your collection, but we have played this a long time, have so many incredible memories of this game. But a game that maybe is dependent, I think, on on the right group in order for it to hit. This is going to go to Cosmic Encounter. So I was thinking about really when I think of like top board game memories, Cosmic Encounter's up there. I mean, we played the heck out of Cosmic Encounter.
Yeah.
We really, during a season of life, had this same group that just loved it. And so, I mean, we got all a bunch of the expansions. It's a game where the variety of the aliens is just incredible, and it just the aliens are just wild. They let you just break the game in an incredible way. But then even the just the gameplay of playing cards, trying to get your colonies on other planets, and the first one to get to 5 colonies on another planet wins the game. So great game, but I find a lot of the enjoyment of the game isn't actually the mechanics of what's happening, but a lot of what's happening between players at the table and the interaction between players. And I don't know, because I was actually thinking about, Ryan, when we first got this game, we played it, I think, and maybe the problem was we were only playing it 3-player or whatnot, but
I think that was the main problem.
That might have been the main problem, but we were playing it, several times, and it felt like, this is good, and I felt like we were, more just kind of focused on the mechanics of it. But then when we got that group that just not only loved it, but the interactions during games.
Well, and got to the point where everybody knew the game so well. So everybody has an awareness of everybody knows what artifacts could be in play. And and it just takes it to kind of another level in the types of interesting interactions you have.
Yeah.
When everybody is pretty well versed in the systems and situations that can come up and understands kind of the implications of allying and kind of the arc of the game. And it just definitely amps it up.
That's actually a great point. Yeah, the knowledge of what can be played, what's in the game is huge for the enjoyment. So I just think about, recommending this game of someone. I mean, there still is a lot of variety even in just the base box.
There's a ton of variety.
So that's not the issue. But I think it's just one that you need not only maybe the same group to kind of play it over and over and really learn it, because maybe your first few plays, it'll be fun, but it may not blow you away, I think, the way it did for us after playing it so many times. So it just takes it takes a while, and I think you add that to also, I think you just need a group that likes interacting with each other. If everyone's just kind of sitting back kind of quietly and just playing their cards.
Yeah, it would be very boring, honestly, in most cases.
I know. So I think it's pretty group dependent. And so if you have a group that loves the above the table interaction, and is willing to play a game multiple times and kind of learn the ins and outs of it, it can be great. But that's what puts it at number 5 for one that I'm slightly hesitant to recommend.
Nice. My number 5 is one that you might find surprising. Maybe not. Maybe it'll be on your list. But it's one that, it didn't immediately pop to mind when I thought of this topic. Mm-hmm. But the more I thought about it, even though I so recommend this game, it's because it's like such a specific situation I'd recommend it to. There's just like a lot of conditions with that recommendation that kind of put that on this list. And that is Tichu. So Tichu, I want to recommend Tichu to almost anybody that really likes traditional card games or these types of things.
Yeah.
But you start to think about, okay, Tichu, you need 4 people, exactly 4, that are going to want to play a card game that's got a little more going on for a traditional card game. And you're going to have that group repeatedly, because this isn't like a pull it out and play it once with a group type of game. This is like a put in a little investment and get a lifetime of enjoyment out of this type of game. And we've seen this even when I'm there to teach new players. I mean, it usually takes a little while for them to start clicking with them. And even after a couple games, I'm encouraging them if you liked this, you're only going to like it more the more you play. It really is one that just keeps rewarding your understanding of the game. And so that does just make it harder to recommend to a specific person, because it's well, do you have all those things? Are you going to have 4 people that are going to play it a lot of times? Because that's really the only way you're going to get the full potential out of Tichu. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've seen. I mean, I'm at over 100 plays of Tichu, and if most of those plays were with people that knew the game and had played it quite a few times. And so, from my perspective, it's this is the best in class in the kind of more traditional card game type of thing. I mean, even outside of traditional card games, this is a game that's landed in my top 20 games of all time for the last decade. As a small little card game that's hardly different than a standard deck of cards. So yeah, it's that weird balance between I so want to recommend it, but then find myself hesitant, which I guess is why I included it. I guess that's why I included it on this list.
That's why it's on this video. Yeah. No, I actually, Ryan, that's a really good one. I have actually gotten to play Tichu a couple times in the last month. Oh my goodness, so great. I just love that game.
Yeah.
But the first time it was with newer people to it, and I agree, the teach is not easy. Especially if they don't have a background of trick-taking games. I mean, then you're having to, start at.
And when I've taught it, I usually do it in I'll do a hand where we don't do any special cards, and it's okay, this is the core system, and no bombs or anything, and then it's okay, here's the special cards, here's the bombs, here's calling Tichu, and I mean, there's just some layers to this thing, and then the fact that it's partnership play, and there's a lot of strategy in the partnership play.
There's so
much. The fact that it isn't, unlike some other, there's some other games President is a common card game that's pretty similar to Tichu in kind of a climbing, get rid of your cards. But Tichu is very different in that you can't just be thinking of getting rid of all your cards, or you oftentimes will get stuck.
Yeah.
And that's something that's hard to kind of help a new player understand, that it's okay, be thinking of how many things you think you could win a lead with, because if you leave yourself with all cards that aren't winning leads, you're gonna have a pretty hard time.
Yeah, if someone is playing triples, it may not be the smartest thing to drop triple aces, right?
Yeah, or triple kings.
Or triple kings, because singles. The strategy of it is so much deeper, which I think is why we love it. But at the same
time, you're like, I know this other person is like counting on that winning them a trick. And so there's times where it's like, how much am I hurting their hand if I kind of unexpectedly beat something?
Yeah.
It's fascinating and we love it. And there's people probably watching this that would love it too, but there's also ones that it like probably just wouldn't be the right pick.
It's good value too. We talked about that in another video. Great value. Very nice, Ryan. Moving to my number 4. This is my only kind of the outlier on the list in that it is a more of a party game. It is shorter. So, that's not the reason. I mean, it's not expensive, none of that. Mm-hmm. But one that, again, you need the right group for this to hit. And I can just imagine groups where this does not go over well.
Yeah.
This is going to go to Decrypto.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't actually think about this one that much, but this is a good pick.
Yeah, it's so, in this game, you're each in teams and you're trying to, it's this back and forth of you've got these 4 words in front of you. One person on your team gets a code of, 3 numbers and is writing clues to try to get your team to guess the order of the words, but the other team is hearing those clues and over time trying to intercept the code and guess the code of the other team. With the right group, and we've experienced this game is phenomenal. Like we have kind of, it's at this point like our Decrypto group, which is our
it's like once a year with our family.
I know, which we've got. I think here in April we're gonna be all back together. So we got to get another game of Decrypto in, because man, the just back and forth escalation of giving clues that are good for your team but are not obvious for the other team. And then like I just love the pressure when a team is like on, they've got you pinned down on, like they maybe feel like they know one of the things, so how can you give a clue that throws someone off? It is so fun. But man, if you this is one, well, and actually I've had this happen. If you just have someone who's not very good at this, not very good at the clue giving, like maybe they just give something that's really obvious, and it just gets you get intercepted.
And it only takes 2 intercepts or 2 miscommunications to lose the game.
Yeah. And so there's on that end, you could just be super obvious and it ends and the person who did that feels not great.
Yeah.
Or on the other end, you are trying so hard to throw them off that you just give a terrible clue for your team and they have no idea. And so it's a challenging game. Like it's a, we talk about party games on kind of a scale of just more like not strategy, laughter being the focus, and ones where it is more strategic and skill in the party game. And this one definitely is closer to that. So yeah, a hard one to just say, go get Decrypto, because man, it's you do need the right group for it to
the right
to
group,
really
and
hit.
there's like this thing that needs to click in your brain about how the game works, which is that you're not trying to like they can't see your words, but they can see the previous clues.
Yeah.
So I've seen times where people have done a clue that's like, oh yeah, that would be hard for them to connect to the real word, but it fits closely with the category of clues we've already done with that word. And it's like, well, they're going to be able to see that it goes in that category. And that's really what you're trying to throw them off. And it is so fun when you think they're onto you and you do a clue that they're like, yep, that for sure is in here. And then it's not. And they're like, how can it not? Like, it goes in there. But like the fact that your team, you can be so much more like lenient with your clues because you can see the words. You don't have to be that close to a word to get your team to guess it. You just need to be maybe a little closer to it than the other 3 words.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's a fascinating one, and it is one that is hard to, and honestly, not just hard to recommend, it's hard for me to pull it out.
Yeah.
Like we say, we don't play it that often. I mean, party games usually are the types of games you feel comfortable pulling out with a lot of different groups. Decrypto's a tricky one.
It is.
But it's a really good one.
It is.
My number 4 is hard to recommend. I will say it's gotten easier to recommend as we've entered this era of like really high quality video tutorials online, and that's what I would recommend to somebody. I'd be like, get this game and then go watch like several different like how to plays before you ever open the rule book. But back in the days where you would have had to just buy this and learn it from the rule book, I would have been even more hesitant to recommend Mage Knight. And that's simply, Mage Knight is a beast to learn from the rule book. I mean, I joke, you know, my wife makes fun of me that like, you know, I'm sitting on the couch recreationally, like reading these like really complex rule books and stuff. And it's like, is that fun? And like Mage Knight's like a poster child for it, with like 4 columns of like 8-point font down the, not a lot of pictures.
Oh, come on.
And so it is one that like, man, I can't, it's hard to recommend like knowing how that learning experience is going to be. And it certainly would get a lot better if you know, watch videos and stuff, but there's still a lot going on with this game. And so you just got to like know that the person you're recommending to is like gonna put in the effort to learn it, on top of it already being, you know, is it a good game for them? Mm-hmm. And so it's a complex one, and that's a lot of that complexity is what we love about the game. Like the experience it delivers once you kind of know it is great. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we've even experienced like after not playing it for a while. I mean, Dangle now owns it and is too afraid to play it because he's never had me
Ryan's
not
always
there
handled
to...
the rule book. I'm scared to open it.
Yeah,
no,
so,
I will play it.
It's a lot going on. It's one of those games that it's like you just accept the fact that at the end of the game it's like we probably got something wrong at some point.
Played 50% of the rules wrong.
I am absolutely notorious for us finishing the final battle and then afterwards remembering that we didn't. The cities have like specific effects that you're supposed to add on to the monsters, and we never remember it.
Yeah.
And so it's like we spend 20 minutes figuring out the final battle, celebrating, and then like, oh no.
Which, to clarify for people, we always play this game cooperatively.
We do.
That is that's our preferred.
When we first got it, we which is another thing. We first played it competitively, and then once we played co-op, we never went back.
No.
It is another game that if I was to recommend it, I would be recommending it like purely as co-op or solo. Like the competitive is fine, but it's just not. There's other games I'd probably recommend for a big competitive game like that.
It's too long, I think, for how
too long. It's too snowballing, like to where you pretty much know who's ahead.
Like with a game that long, if it's cooperative, I'm invested in your turn. Like I care, you know, I get excited when you're doing things.
And there can be some long turns.
Exactly.
Like somebody goes and fights a group of enemies. They could be sitting there for 10 or more minutes just trying to figure out how they can solve this little puzzle.
And so when it's competitive, they're over there, you know, on the other side of the map doing something. And you don't want to help them. And so you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm waiting for my turn. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a huge game changer for us to play this one co-op.
For sure. Very nice, Ryan. Moving to my number 3. This is a game that I owned. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Don't currently own, but will soon own another version of this game. A little risky. But this is one that is such an amazing experience, but could also be a disaster. Mm-hmm. And you just have to be okay with that. And this is going to go to Nemesis. This, I still say, is one of the best thematic board games I've played. I've like the way it makes you feel the honestly terror of I'm in this, you know, ship with these terrifying aliens creeping the corridors and the noise and all that. Like they just did a phenomenal job with it. And I love it. And I love the kind of semi co-op nature of it, where it's not pure like good and bad, but everyone has, you know, kind of these objectives, and some objectives are maybe a little more focused on the team, and others, you know, potentially you might, you know, want someone to die. So, but this game can can absolutely just because of and this is the case with a lot of games that have, luck and stuff like that. Oh my gosh, you could get absolutely just wiped out.
Yeah.
And that's hard to swallow with a long game, like, and you kind of just have to be okay with it. And typically we are okay with that because we know what the game can deliver, in its in games like these. But I've had a game, I've had a game of this where it was like, oh man, we just got annihilated, like totally destroyed. And I like that that's possible because it feeds into the theme of the game of this is hard. This is, I'm not just walking out here big and mighty and rolling.
And it makes
the
stakes feel high. Like that tension is high because you know how quickly things could spiral.
Exactly. So it's like it's a feature of the game that I like, but it's hard to just say go get Nemesis because, one, it's a long game, but you could, get a group together and have a not great experience in it. So that was ultimately kind of why it landed on the list for me. Probably also, you have to be okay with the semi co-op nature. Like someone's objective could be they want you not to survive, so they might, randomly shut a door on you. And like, I guess for this game to hit, you have to care. I found you have to care less about winning the game. Like you still are trying to, but more that what we're going into is a narrative experience, a story. And we're here to just experience the story of what happens. And I found like when I care less about I need to win the game and more about let's just like play this and see we're able to laugh at the things and see it unfold like that. So
and the game is designed such that if everybody is trying to win, that's what delivers that narrative experience.
For sure.
And that's what makes it like a good game is you get to be in this narrative and you get to try to win. It's just that you can't hang all of your enjoyment on whether you had a fair chance in that, or whatever, because there's just so much else going on. This is one, I probably would have considered it more strongly for this list if I'd played it more than once at this point. But I totally agree with what you're saying. And it's actually a good segue into my number 3, which is almost all the same reasons.
I consider this one as well.
And this is Eldritch Horror. And so this is a game, again, it's long, it's got a lot going on, so there's some of those reasons that I'd be hesitant, but it's also a game that is very swingy in its experiences. We've had games that are some of our highest board gaming moments ever. We've had games that have pushed 4 hours and we're all kind of just like, we knew we lost this 3 hours ago, but
I know.
And we stick with it because we've had games where we thought we lost it 3 hours ago, and somehow
you would never call a game early. Are you ever call a game early?
I don't think we'd call a game early. It helps that Eldritch is a bit better about like keeping the game. Like back when we played Arkham Horror, that game could have like a gate burst.
Oh, you get a gate burst,
and you're like, this. We just added an hour.
Like every gate burst, 1 hour to the play. That's
so like it's gonna get there eventually. But it's so hard to recommend when somebody who gets it, they could have that as their first experience, like a very in fact, I would say it's almost like more likely that they will because you don't have a group that like kind of knows the game and like is going to have that element of it. You're probably not going to have any expansions. And so you're playing pretty vanilla ancient ones, like with pretty vanilla mysteries because some of the expansions even add new mysteries for the existing ones. I actually am to the point where I don't usually play the Azathoth one, which is the very first one in the base set, because I think they went too far in making it too vanilla, that it's kind of like a little...
What is that one again?
He doesn't have like any special ability. It's just if he wakes up, you instantly lose. Like destroys the world. And like
it makes the game shorter.
Oh yeah. All the mysteries are just like the most vanilla mysteries. It's like, pick up these clues and this many clues and spend them to like there's a lot of different ancient ones that have kind of some of these pretty standard ones. And the thing is, I know that like a lot of people are going to get the game and they're going to play Azathoth first because it's like the simplest one and it's kind of the first one. And so you are kind of setting yourself up you're really lowering the ceiling of like how good that game could be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just can picture people playing this game for the first time and coming away really, really underwhelmed and feeling like it was way too long and way too lucky. And for some people, they're going to be right that it's not for them for those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there's probably people that, like, if they had the opportunity to play it more, play with some better setups and with people that knew the game, like, it really could grow for them the way it grew for us. We also came into Eldritch having already played Arkham Horror 2nd Edition over 50 times. And so we already had such a strong, group and experience with this big, long, epic game that was if anything, we went into Eldritch and we're like, this is so streamlined.
I know, we're like, nothing, there's going to be no gate bursts to add an hour to the game. Look at this.
So it's one we obviously recommend. Like, we have it very high in our personal ratings. Our review for it, I would say, was very glowing in our personal ratings, but it is a hard one to encourage somebody to go out and get.
At least if you get it, just get the Forsaken Lore expansion right away, and just play those two.
Don't play Azathoth as your first ancient one. Would be my recommendation.
Yeah,
play with 4 people. The box says what, like 1 to 8. Do not, please. So help me if someone's trying to play this with 8 players.
Man. I might try that this year. Let's see if we can get an 8-player game of Eldritch.
It would be so painful. Like, yeah, it would be awful.
Yeah, that's rough. Can you imagine? Yeah. Someone's like, look at this versatile game. Goes up to 8.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of games to go to 8. This would be a good one to pick up. Publishers, you owe it to your players to be given an honest.
Maybe that's what they'll do in the new Agricola that they're revising. Go up to 8 players. You'll take that.
Hey, I didn't believe in 6, and I am converted.
Why not keep going?
Yeah, the trend suggests that it only keeps getting better.
Very nice. My number 2 has already been mentioned. I am terrified to play this game, and yet it's one of my favorite board games of all time. That's a weird statement to say, but this one is just, it is a incredible doozy of a board game, and this goes to Mage Knight.
You gotta take off the training. I've been the training wheels for you, Daniel. It's time for you to ride the Mage Knight bike on your own.
I'm scared. I have over the year, Mage Knight. It's been I'm not sure if it's ever been my number 1, but for sure been my number 2 of all time. I've never played a game with as awesome of a just arc and exploration and the upgrading. Like, from the beginning to the end, you just feel like so powerful and customized with your abilities are a reflection of the journey that you've been on and all of that. So the game is just amazing, and I need to get it to the table. But man, like you said, that rulebook is just so dense and hard.
It's not an elegant design. Like, there's a lot of little rules and things you have to remember.
And I've always relied on Ryan to just carry all that, and I'm just over here and I can ask questions.
Having a grand old time.
You know what I should try, Ryan? I think it was the Dice Tower that talked about how you can use the new Google's Notebook LM AI LLM, thing. Yeah, I should put the Mage Knight rulebook in there.
That isn't a bad idea.
And then I can at least ask questions and see if that helps. I might try that out. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I just don't even know how recommending this game, you just have to warn up front, say, are you ready to put in the hard work to learn this thing?
Mm-hmm.
If you are, you're going to have one of the greatest board games that there are. We love this game. Oh my gosh, I want to play this game again. But man, when you just have a barrier to entry like that, and then it's, the game's already long, but you're you're going to be throughout the game needing to check back into a rulebook. That's hard to figure out where it is.
Long, you have to ask them, like, how often do you think you're going to play this 4-hour game? Because the bigger the gap is between your plays, the more this thing we're describing becomes a problem, because you're not going to remember the rules.
I know. Oh gosh. Yeah, it is such an amazing board game, but yeah, they could really use a I don't know, just better rule book. Or
I mean, it's not even we keep saying the rule book. I don't even think it's that the rule book's that bad. Like, a lot of it is just the design is complex.
There's a lot.
So there's a lot of rules to document in the rule book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a doozy.
Maybe they could have done like a big like player sheet or something like. Do they, or player guide or something?
Might have something like that.
Maybe they have something like that. I don't know. I haven't played it in a while, but I do need to play it again, because man, oh man, it's a good game.
It's good stuff. Well, we're going to stay on the train of basically the very similar reasons of why this game is my number 2 that I'm most hesitant to recommend. But I think this one even goes further than Mage Knight in difficulty to learn, kind of complexity work you have to put up front, and that's Too Many Bones.
You think it's more than Mage Knight? Okay.
I think so. And honestly, the thing that puts it over the edge is the fact that every gear lock is a whole rule book of itself to learn how to play and understand how it works. And again, it's not a elegant design. I mean, we're talking a game that, like, I've played it, 7 times, and I have not yet experienced this dangerous darts mini game that there's like a whole page in the rule book dedicated to this, so it's a game that leans into like, oh, what if you have this one-off thing happen and it's like this whole other mini game? There's the whole lock picking kind of mini game. Like, they really threw the kitchen sink in this one. And we know that there's games we really enjoy that the fact that the kitchen sink is thrown in is part of what we really like about it, is because it can give these really unique and varied experiences. And I love Too Many Bones, but man, it is a good thing that there exists big video tutorials on how to play like each gear lock and stuff. There's still like 45 minutes of you like watching how to just play your character. And if you're playing with somebody else for the first time, like there, and then you add in like the fact that the enemy abilities, there's a whole glossary of keywords, that this person has lashback and this person has this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And if the first time you play, every single enemy you pull out is going to be followed by you searching the reference thing and being like, okay, that's what that thing does, and that's what that thing does.
And if you don't play again for a year, you're going to be doing the exact same thing over again.
So people who love and play Too Many Bones a ton, they get to the point where they know these keywords and they don't have to check the rule book. But I, have still needed to, you don't see all of them in every game. And, remember I remember that was like something like this. Like, flight, I remember they like go away and they come back, but like, I'm not confident enough to like do it without referencing exactly how it works again. So yeah, this is I think even more than Mage Knight, it's one that like, I would hope that you're playing it more frequently so you don't just like forget all the stuff. Cause then you're just,
I mean, that
even with how frequently I've been playing it. Yeah. You got to experience that, right? Like
that was my experience of it, of like, I mean, we had played it once and then it was, I don't know, was it a year later close to it?
Yeah, basically.
That I played it again, and it was so hard because it was like, I can tell I'm like would love this game.
Yeah.
But, oh my goodness, I have no idea what's going on in terms of like I can't look at the board or the grid and know what I should be thinking, because there's all these keywords that I have no idea what they are, and and you're explaining them and stuff. So it improved over time, but man, that's a big barrier.
It is a big barrier. So it's not the right game for a lot of people, but there's a lot of people that this is like their favorite game of all time. It's true. It's definitely a game I enjoy a lot. So just know what you're getting
yourself into. Very nice, Ryan. Well, we're going to move to my number 1 game that I do truly love. but is quite hard to recommend. I talk with people about our love for playing board games and talk about, some of our favorite games, and sometimes they'll ask, how long is that game? And a lot of games, hour, 2 hours. Maybe if it's if you're getting to like 3 hours, I mean that's a long game. That you're spending a lot of time. That's on the long side of things. And then I tell them about this game that is 8 hours long. Mm. And this is going to go to Twilight Imperium 4th edition. I love this game. This was at one point my number one board game of all time. It is unlike any experience that I've, had in a board game. It, in some ways combines, we talked about with Cosmic, the kind of above the table diplomacy interaction with each other. This game has that in spades. I love the exploring, the how the game isn't just run out and fight, but it's all objective. The objectives and getting victory points are what are driving you. I think that's the game. The game is fantastic, but I just don't know how I can say go get this when.
Especially to buy it, to be the person, because it's one thing to be like, oh, if you get the opportunity to play this, you should try it.
For sure, yeah. I would much rather go find a group that has this and get in on that. But man, it's expensive. This is a massive game. It is the most difficult game to get to the table. I mean, you really, if you're gonna play this game, there's ways you can play with less, but you really want 6 people.
That's the ideal.
That's the ideal.
Scenario.
If you're gonna
already set aside a full day, you might as well try to get the full player count.
So you need a lot of people. This is a game you need to prep before that. It's not even just the 8 hours of the game. You're sending people things ahead of time of to first you send them the I forget who's is it Shay? Is that his
Shay
name?
From
he did the
RTFM.
Incredible. That's
video.
A
great video to learn
but the game. You must send them that, and you tell that I remember sending this in the group text. You cannot show up unless you have watched this video. This is because otherwise you're adding at least another hour to the game, if not more, with the teach. So you need everyone to already come in with an understanding, a base understanding of it. So there's just so much that had the conditions to be right for this game.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. This is why it's one of the hardest games to get to the table. But if the conditions are right, Ryan, it is phenomenal. It is just again, in some ways, it's unlike any other, because it's not even just you're sitting down to play a board game. It's an event. It's an all day experience that you get to share with these other people that leaves you with stories and memories that you'll never forget. And so, I think on top of that also, you need people that negotiating, diplomacy, are okay with combat, being attacked. There's a lot of things that's you gotta be okay. You gotta be okay with the time. You gotta be okay with this. You gotta be okay with that. There's a lot of things like that. But man, if you can check all those boxes, I highly recommend Twilight Imperium. That you go click that link down below.
Yeah.
For Twilight Imperium 4th edition. A wonderful game. That rarely gets played.
Especially for me. Man.
Yeah, no kidding.
I considered this one. It did not make my list. Probably partly because it's not quite as high for me in my own personal enjoyment as you. I do like it a lot.
Yeah.
I also haven't played it in a long time, so maybe I'm just forgetting.
You are.
But it makes a lot of sense. My number 1 has actually been mentioned by you.
Oh.
And I went back and I knew this one was going to be on the list. It was one of the first ones I thought of, but the more I thought of it, the more it rose to the top. And this is Cosmic Encounter.
Oh my gosh, you're number 1. Okay.
Which is a little weird because Cosmic Encounter in recent years has actually gone down for me in my own personal rankings. But like, I don't blame the game too much for that, just because it's like, okay, I've played it like almost 200 times and like had so many highs. It's a lot to ask of this game for me to,
Yeah.
But I just more and more have realized over the years how easy it is for this game to fall flat, even with players that are more experienced. And like, I have taught this to people in the last 5 years and had it just like not land quite the way you wanted. And again, that's with me feeling like I did a really good job of like teaching and like giving the spirit of the game and like having multiple people in the game that have played it before. And so I'm just picturing somebody buying this game and playing it cold with like a new group. It just feels like the odds of it falling flat are like too high. Like, it's just like hard to, and like, it's a terrible feeling to recommend a game to somebody and have them be like really underwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a theme on this list, is like, we don't want to set people up for failure with like, there's safer games. And honestly, Cosmic is one that probably falls more into a try before you buy ideally, but even that's hard, because are you trying it in the right conditions to really tell yourself if it's a game that you're going to enjoy?
So what type of group should consider Cosmic Encounter?
It's kind of a gamer's party game, is kind of how I think about it.
Okay,
because
it's interesting.
The game is very wild, very above the table in what you're happening. A lot of the enjoyment of it is just like seeing these weird situations that you've never seen before, of like, oh my gosh, like, because of this alien power and this alien power and like
that flare
what we know about what's in this person's hand, and like, you get in these situations that, while the game is very like, there's a lot of randomness, and honestly, like, does the most skilled player win every time? Not necessarily. Somebody's going to squeeze out at the end, but you do get to make a lot of interesting decisions. Like, you get to be in this bizarre strategic landscape and try to figure out, how can I position myself? And I love a lot of these decisions. The decisions of like, how do I work with this hand? Or like, this hand is garbage. I don't want anybody to know my hand is garbage. Like, so there's a little bit of like bluffing, but also going to be like, what is my path to getting to a hand that's not garbage? Do I need to just like let somebody get onto my planet so I can just throw my hand at them as compensation so I can get rid of cards? There's so many interesting decisions in this game that the right group that learns it and knows the game is going to just there's certain groups that this will be their favorite game of all time. And we've talked about how our highs that we've had with this game with that particular group like really were high. Like, it really was like very memorable.
And it's a game that if you like it, your group is just going to want to play it over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's infinitely replayable with just all the different alien combinations. But yeah, the chances of it falling flat really is what it boils down for me, and how those chances go up if you're a new group, if you like, it just makes it, and it's so different from other games. The game came out originally in like 1977. Almost every aspect of the game is like, okay, that's the fact that you don't get to pick who you attack. Like, it's destiny. And then there's like this allying and like the way the card play works, and then the base system is all very unique, and then you're on top of that throwing these crazy powers that are doing wild things, which is part of what makes me want to recommend it to people, because I'm like, this is a fascinating game. Like, this is unlike anything you've played before. But then there's the voice in the back of my head, or remembering some of these sessions I've had of it, and just being like, there's just too high of a chance that's going to be their experience with it.
Yeah.
And so, it's an interesting one. It's one I don't get to the table as much anymore. I have this conflict between wanting to introduce it to people and also being like, well, it only makes sense to introduce it to them if I'm going to like play it
a lot,
multiple times with them, get enough shots on goal that they see the highs, because once you see the potential of the game, you're much more, we talked about this with Eldritch, you're much more forgiving of the lows.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they play a game once or twice and like that's the opinion on it, which is fair. There's a lot of games to play and you don't want to be spending tons of time if you don't think you like something.
Yeah. This one's tricky because in some ways, you think about it, we got this earlier on in our board gaming journey, which is kind of the perfect time to get it when you don't have a lot of games.
Yeah.
Because if you love it, man, you can just keep playing it over and over again. We're in a season now where we're not playing the same game over and over and over.
Yeah.
We play so in some ways you like almost want to recommend it to someone maybe like that, but then also it's like it's such a gamble,
It is. I mean, you have to ask them, you'd be like, okay, this is a game that you ideally want 5 people, maybe 4, maybe 6. I guess you need the expansion to go to 6. But like ideally 5 people. And are you going to play this game? It's not a super long game. I mean, we're talking like 45 minutes to an hour usually. But are you going to play this game, at least 5 times within like the first few months of getting it? Are you going to, play this with a consistent group a certain number of times in a year? And if you know about yourself that that's not how you usually operate with games, like maybe you're someone who gets a lot of games and you're only playing these new games a few times, and there's big gaps between playing it, then like I do not recommend Cosmic Encounter. Like I don't think it's the right choice. But we both have the memories, and like those memories, like I know that other groups could have that experience, and I have to recommend that, right? Like it's like for the right group, this could be the best recommendation I could possibly give to them.
That's my problem about even considering owning it for myself, is I almost feel like I'm chasing these like high memories that I'm almost like, can I even hit that again? Or was that just the perfect condition?
I feel like you would need like a new group that's the right group, and you get to like almost like start this new chapter of like with that group. And I honestly it's one of those games I'm like never going to get rid of. Because it's so unique. I have so many memories with it. And like, even though it doesn't get played a lot, there's nothing competing with its spot really. And it's very nostalgic. But yeah, it is, I guess, in my opinion, the game that I am most hesitant to recommend despite, how many highs I've had with it.
Hey, thanks for watching. Even though these are games we are hesitant to recommend, they might be the perfect game for you. And if you think that might be the case, we've got links down below. You can check them out down there. And it's also a way to support the channel, which we appreciate. We have more videos, tons of more videos, and there's a couple right here. We'll see you in the next one.